I'm doing well. Hi, everyone.
All right, we do have a quorum. There are four of us. Susan, how are you today?
So,
Good. Um, I know Lindsay, I got a note from Lindsay a little earlier. She's sick. Tom is on the road. And last I knew, he was trying to fix a car.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. That was a while
Wow.
ago.
he got it fixed.
He did, good.
Yeah.
So anyway, uh, we do have a quorum, so we'll call everything to order. Everybody get the minutes?
Oh, I
Yes.
have hard copies if anybody needs. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take a hard copy of the agenda.
I'll look at the hard copy too. I didn't bring mine.
All right, any comments, questions, additions, deletions from the minutes?
It's the agenda.
Thank you.
Susan, any issue?
No.
Anybody else? Jennifer? Okay.
Nope, it was good.
All right. So if there are nothing else, do I hear a motion to accept them?
So
You're not a voting member.
I'm not. I retract
So
my
there's-
my
Do I
illegal.
hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Since we're on Zoom, Susan,
Yes.
I'm an I. I all the way around.
So,
Okay,
I'm not, the quorum is because you have Susan.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm not being counted.
no.
I'm subhuman.
Okay.
I call it ex officio, but you know.
Yeah.
Well,
You see it's me.
always the lawyer.
So we do have a guest. This is Emily McCarthy from Island Institute. Emily and I have been talking about a program that she's part of, and we'll get into that right after we talk about the housing survey. Susan,
So, I've gone from bad to worse and physically, I'm going to need a full shoulder replacement and have a lot of pain despite getting treatment for that. So, typing and running around, I need to cut back from that on our committee, and I'm sorry about that because I really wanted to follow it through. So if someone else can pick up the loose ends that are still hanging, that would be great. So I need to cut back the typing, lifting, reaching out, things like that. So it makes hard doing most of life. The survey news is not happy. Nobody at PYY wanted to fill out the survey. And only 4 people on the ferry, despite Raymond keeping asking people. We have only 4 surveys from the ferry. And we have 15 total now from Islesboro, so we don't have very much data. And I don't know, obviously, I don't know what we want to do to try to make this better, but we don't have a whole lot in. And when I asked Gabe why, he said, people just didn't want to bother. They didn't want to live here. They didn't want to bother filling it out. And some people were annoyed at being asked what their mortgage or their rents were, even though it could be done completely anonymously. So I think there just was not a good frame of mind. So that's the report. I have them, and I can hand them off to whoever wants to take over, going through them. So, and I started thinking about, what other approaches we can take, but I didn't come up with much because I'm not quite myself these days.
Quick question, Susan, do those 15 include the 9 responses I have online?
No, I haven't seen the online responses. And I didn't even go in, typing everything. So no, that's good. That would make 24. That's great.
I mean, that could be statistically significant, right?
Yeah.
Given
And the ones we have responses to online are all on island folks. It's the on island one. But Lindsay had a different, so we had 2 different versions. She typed up the off-island one and I typed up the off-island survey and we had different links. So Lindsay may have responses. Hers was the one that was sent out with the QR code. So if there are any
All right,
online ones or digital versions, she would have it. So I am happy to follow up with Lindsay. And then Susan, I can either, I don't know if you want to drop them off here at the town and I can pick them up. If you want to mail them to me, I would be happy to do the data entry sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. I can drop them off at the town.
Okay. Do
Thank
you want to
you.
just give me a call whenever it is that you end up doing that? And then I'll make sure that'll remind me to come by.
Thank you.
All right. If that's not too much trouble. If not, if
No, I mean, I need to go out and do, buy some milk or whatever. That's okay. I just
Okay.
need to cut back and save anything that I have to do to be essentially domestic, taking care of things.
I'm so sorry. That's gotta be worse. Oh, awful.
Yeah, I'm not looking for, I've already had the rotator cuff surgery, so that's why I need to get this now. Oh, well, take care of your joints, people.
all right, be well.
Thank you.
Do you know, did the survey go up to the school? Do you know?
Not the paper survey, no.
No. So that might be an opportunity to do both the on and off island. So we can chat through that.
Is there a place I can see the survey?
I'm happy to send you the
Send me
links.
a link, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, because I think I emailed them to everybody before you were on the committee. And then I don't know if it would make sense for Agnes to include both surveys in her updates that go out to the school community. We could deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would make sense. Any distribution that we can get would be great. I'm just looking to see, I thought I had it in this pile, but I don't think I do. Okay,
Jennifer, is your email on the email
On
address
the
for the?
distribution with, I'm getting Mike's emails.
Okay,
now, so it should be
great.
in there.
All right, and then I guess that's all, I'll coordinate with Susan for doing the data entry. I'll follow up with Lindsay about her digital survey and I'll email you both versions.
okay, great, thanks. Okay, anything else on the survey?
The cursory data on the 9 that I saw was that most folks feel like their housing is currently affordable and they were interested in downsizing or sort of keeping the same size. And most folks didn't have trouble with, there was only a couple folks who were having trouble keeping their homes warm.
Oh, maybe a couple. That's surprising, given this winter.
Yeah.
Does Waldo County still offer fuel assistance?
Don't know.
The state does, and I don't know if but I think they administer it through the county. So yes, that still exists. There was a discussion this week about the funding running out, but I don't know where that is.
I know Pastor Trish advocates and gets the people help what they need for heating fuel. So she's been involved in that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda was, involves Emily. I got introduced by Shay, to Emily and a couple of other folks there to talk about potential. They got a grant, and maybe you wanna, Emily, it's probably better if you talked about the grant than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll make you give more money, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. My name's Emily. I work with Island Institute. If you're not familiar with Island Institute, which I know that Islesboro has multiple points of contact and has had past fellows, I actually just had coffee last weekend with Liv Linfesti, and she really misses living with you guys. But Anyway, I'm new to Island Institute. I started back in November. I come from a climate adaptation planning background, working with Maine Farmland Trust until I started here. And the grant opportunity that Michael is referencing that might be a good fit for housing work on Islesboro is it's called the Northern Regional Borders Commission Partner Grant, and the portion of money that was awarded to Island Institute is called LEAP. And the purpose of this grant is there are three communities that are recipients, so Millbridge, Stonington, and Islesboro. And the purpose is that each community gets about $15,000 to go towards planning. And that's very broad, and that's on purpose to be as flexible as possible to work with communities that already have identified projects that they need planning, whether that be more technical specs for construction or more qualitative, getting community buy-in for projects planning processes. The other two Island Institute staff members working on this are Abby Roche and Olivia Richards, and the three of us have really been approaching this grant opportunity in a way to hear what the biggest interests are from the communities first, and then making this grant as flexible as possible so that that funding and the technical planning assistance can go towards something that's really needed. So that's all very broad, but to make it more specific to you guys, Michael and I met last week and had a really good conversation about the existing work that you as the housing committee, and then also in partnership with the IAP and also working in the Economic and Sustainability Corp, are doing to develop rental units on the island and make sure that said rental units remain affordable and accessible to folks that are working on the island and contributing to the island economy. So with that being said, what Michael and I talked about is potentially using these LEAP funds, which again is about $15,000, to go towards working with a developer and putting together a more technical side of a proposal for units on the remaining 4 acres of the Shoal Cottage property, but then also using that plan to continue to garner donor support and also community interest. And that's the thing that I'm personally really excited about with this potential project is how can these funds be put towards a tool that will serve as actual, building plans and a blueprint for the future development, but also engage the wider community and serve as almost like a marketing tool for the committee, IAP, and whoever else to really draw people in about the importance of continuing to develop housing units on the island. So where things are at now, I was able to talk to Abby, who I mentioned before, about if this project would be a good fit for LEAP. What Michael and I talked about is that there are specific performance criteria, which I'm happy to go more into with the grant specifications that are about retaining jobs on the island and even jobs creation that obviously having housing available would correspond really well with. And there are other things that I'm going to take a deeper dive into that go into more climate resiliency and storm preparedness that I still think there's a strong link between having housing that is storm resilient and provides adequate shelter for the members of your community. But all that to say is that there's a meeting between me, Abby, and Olivia next week where I would bring forward this potential project with a deeper dive into how it really corresponds with the grant criteria. And then from there, I would get back to you guys and Michael about if this is something that could move forward. So I know that was a lot of information, so I'm happy to take any questions, but overall, I am just really inspired by the work that you guys do and, how you care for your community and wanting to make sure that there's more affordable options for, whatever term of housing people are looking for.
Thank you. So, as we talked about putting together a plan and we were lucky. Jennifer actually introduced us to her brother, who is a builder developer over in Belfast, who very nicely gave us a very nice outline of how we might want to approach a project like this. And so combining all of this, what my hope would be is that we can put together a long-range plan and also and when I say we in this case, I'm talking IAP is working on a very short range plan in terms of what's the next project, and I don't want to get in the way of that. But how would we best utilize the land that we have available? And to the benefit of putting more houses on the island that are in the affordable range, and that's both affordable and as well as workforce. So we originally were looking at a fourplex, a quad, ran into a couple of issues with that from a planning perspective. One is that a quad, based on state building codes, would require us to have a sprinkler system in it. The island is a little bit less stringent on some of those codes than they are on the mainland. However, a huge roadblock on that is insurance. So if we don't meet state, the insurance issue would become big, and putting on the island, putting a sprinkler system in these days with the latest codes would require retention pond, a separate water source, et cetera, et cetera. So it started to add the costs up. So at this point, IAP is talking to a builder who was involved in the latest duplex, which I was told this morning could be finished tomorrow. However, I've heard that before, so I won't make promises. But we are in the midst of talking to that builder about costs, as well as if we get to a long range plan, we'd like to lock somebody up that we can put a cookie cutter plan together, plan meaning, from a housing spec point of view, that would allow us to just keep right on moving through at a much lower rate than the last set of building plans were. So hopefully we'll be in a position soon that that plan will be presented, and that somebody will start a philanthropic program to bring the money in for it. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions, both about what you just shared, as well as about what Emily shared about the grant program. Where would it be better to start?
Any place you want.
Okay. Hi, Emily. It's nice to see your face. Thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, of course.
We've emailed a bunch, but we haven't actually been in a meeting together, so it's really nice to have you. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about how many communities are part of this technical assistance and funding proposal. So is it like all of the islands that the Island Institute serves? Is it just 2 or 3 of us? Like what's the scope of the proposal?
Yeah, just 3. So it's Islesboro, Millbridge, and Stonington. And those communities were identified as, socially quote unquote vulnerable, which I don't really like that terminology. It's what the state uses. And that was put together by Jess Riley Moman last year at her as direct working water.
Curious how we received that designation by the state and what other opportunities that might open up for us.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that with you. There's a social vulnerability index that was put together by the state, and different metrics that are used to go into that, or like, income per capita, looking at also, everything from, more like economic statistics in that way to like flooding risk vulnerabilities. So I can absolutely follow up with what that criteria looks like, and also what that definition in the application was. And I apologize that hasn't been super transparently communicated.
That would be great. And
so one of the ways that housing came up in this was that when Shay looked at everything, that Sea Rise already has a couple of grants, and they have an action plan that they've been working on, and therefore there was something already in the works. Second was, from the harbor master point of view, they're right now out on two existing grants, which I think are looking pretty good for them. And so she didn't want to again duplicate some of that effort. And so housing then came up. As Emily said, I mean, housing is a little different than what the other two communities are looking at. However, in our discussion, we feel we could probably make it work. It's for community needs, and this is clearly a need right here in our community today. And so Emily's gonna go twist arms and make sure that we get it, but I'm hoping that our view would be there, and that's why housing ended up being there versus the other.
That's great. Emily, you said that you're about to huddle with the other folks at the Island Institute about the three different components of the proposal. Will you, is the timeline allowing for any feedback for us? So if after you talk internally, you have sort of either questions or concerns about things that might not work well in what we're putting together with you for us to work on those and make adjustments?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question. And that's what I really want to foster and why I've been so excited to connect with Michael and now be here right now is because I want this to be a back and forth conversation. I think that we have the grant funding and that's great, but I think that there could have been a bit more communication between Island Institute and the communities during the grant proposal. So now really wanting to be as communicative as possible, share back any need for more information that I have from you guys, and then also any thoughts and questions that you guys have for me. So this can be the most useful application of these funds. So yeah, in terms of next steps, Abby, Olivia, and I work really closely and talk, usually on a day-to-day basis, and we're the team on this grant. So Tuesday's our actual meeting, but we've been talking pretty consistently about what information we need from the communities for the respective projects.
Are you worried at all about the economic data that you're saying you were needing around sort of job retention or creation or other aspects that might be included as the performance metrics? Just with such a small population out here, sometimes getting that data can be challenging.
Yes, no, and that's something that we, as we being me, Abby and Olivia, that was one of our biggest considerations when we first heard that, the grant funding was moving forward, is getting that data. And that's something that we, as the Island Institute team, are going to be taking on and collecting. Like, that responsibility isn't on you. I do think that they're to share the grant metrics, like the communities improved, the target is 3 because it's the 3 communities that we're working with. Whereas jobs retained, that will be a bit more back and forth conversation, but that's like a pretty easy, or not easy, but that can be, I should say, a pretty flexible estimate of, if X amount of housing units that could be rented to, X amount of people that work within the community are put in the plan, we can use those estimates as the metrics. And I can provide more info on that too, but with the point being that the lift for the reporting there is really on Island Institute. And we can, do our best to get that data.
And then I have an unrelated question for you. Have you been tracking the work that the speaker's been talking about? It was in the Press Herald like yesterday, the day before, about the need for more funding for infrastructure, especially water and sewer infrastructure. And are you doing any sort of compilation of water and sewer wish lists from the communities that the Island Institute serves? I'm curious if you all are talking about how to potentially help small towns like us apply for that funding.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, we are definitely thinking about it. It's actually Abby and I were just talking about, in our general work that's more climate planning, quote unquote, water quality and aging water and sewer infrastructure is something that comes up a lot, especially in thinking about water quality, drinking water, salt intrusion into existing wells, and thinking about larger town water supplies. That's something that we're often talking about with island and coastal communities. And another thing too is the way that Abby has been doing this work thus far, and then, since I've come on in November, is really trying to gather multiple communities' perspectives so it has more weight when we're working with our policy team at Island Institute to go and advocate for something at the state level. So all of that being said, in addition to the new, or not new, but like bigger push to do more housing work at Island Institute, thinking more about water quality and water and sewer infrastructure is something at the front of our minds. And that's something that I would want to keep talking with you guys about too, so I can get that feedback and think about, what potential either, well, yeah, hopefully funding opportunities, but connections to different folks around the state would be most beneficial for you and other people that are having similar issues.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know if in your conversations, especially given the challenges of water on islands,
Mhm.
and our sole source aquifer that we have out here,
Mhm.
along with, it'd be really, really hard to put in water and sewer in a lot of the island, just given how much ledge we have.
Yep.
Do you know if there are any conversations about alternatives to sort of full water treatment? One of the things that the housing committee has been discussing is the things that are sort of steps toward full water treatment, but that might allow us for greater density and water efficiency, and to bring down some of the development costs, especially the land costs associated with having traditional septic. But
Mhm.
we have done some initial research and had some interesting ideas get raised, but I don't know if there are any best practices.
But that's something that I'll ask my colleagues. And I've had in projects, there's a project that my supervisor Abby is working on called Main Island Project, and that's looking across, I think, yeah, Islesboro and Mohegan are included in this project for like specific funding reasons, whatever. But looking at
The one that has that whole pre-processing unit into it, which literally takes the septic, cuts it by a half, at least, if not more, is something that I think is well worth us pursuing over time.
Yeah. Michael, you had said that the water sprinkler system, that code requirement comes into play once we have 4 units. I know that there's a bill that had a hearing this week where the firefighters were sort of the strongest opponents to it because, well, I wasn't there. I think it was primarily because they weren't included in the discussions about what the changes should be. But there was a discussion about moving to single stairwell as opposed to dual stairwell. And there was a discussion about reducing sprinkler requirements that's happening at the state level.
Okay.
I don't know what our timeline at IIP might be, and if this, I didn't get the impression that it was
Well-
about to move forward. I think they're gonna do a study,
Yeah.
but
So, I mean, timeline is something we're still trying to work on, which is why I kind of looked at it as a long-range plan, but I don't want the long-range plan to put a halt on putting the next unit up. Because we do have the property, and I understand that actually the building permit was issued at the same time the soon-to-be finished unit was issued. So if we have the building permit, and Earl is working on that. I think he's got a meeting with Dave tomorrow just to go through the permit itself. So if we can get that going, and once we have that plan, then we can start to raise some of the needed money for that. But the long-range plan really is one, so the goal was to take, and again, it's plus or minus, but it's a little over 4 acres, I think. And put an overall land use plan together, I mean, and lay it out. And so that we can address the road, because there is from a municipal point of view, there's a road issue. The road that was originally proposed for the units we just put in isn't wide enough to make it a town road. So we need to do something about that. Now, fortunately, from an IAP perspective, we still need to do work on that road. So can we incorporate that? And then how does that continue so that it becomes a town road? And everything from, well, I mean, an example would be, how you place the houses on the lots. So the two houses that were put up actually should have been put up facing a different way, if you think about, the overall use of solar.
Give everybody a mirror.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it turns out the southern exposure on those two houses have no windows in them.
I see.
You're
That's-
kidding.
No, I'm not. But anyway, so it really, says, okay, I've learned from that, right? So putting together, getting somebody in the plan to lay out not only the roads, but the lots, where the infrastructure is gonna be, the whole deal. And so that it provides us with a longer range plan. And if duplexes are, and by the way, uh, by a sizable builder, we were told that duplexes really are the answer. To go more than that is, I mean, that's not bad, but duplexes are much easier to replicate. And replicate on a faster basis, and so, we might make them smaller than the one we just did. That's a pretty nice size over there, so, but anyway, that's
That's exciting.
what we, are thinking about doing there. And on the same token, I did attend this, the Main Islands or Island Institute Housing Committee had a meeting last Thursday, I guess it was. And Erin invited two developers to come, because the developer process was something that had come up in previous meetings. One of them, and they do everything from affordable to workforce. They're not doing, major residential programs at the higher level. But one of them is based in Rockland, has done a couple of work development projects in Rockland. The other one, I think he lived in Portland, but he did kind of Central Corridor. Neither one of them worked on an island, and so when asked, what would make you interested in to come work on an island, they both kind of had no immediate response, and when pressed, they said, well, if you can give me 10 units, I might be interested. So volume is clearly something that a developer would be looking for. So if you look at what IAP, who's been doing the development, if you would, they've been pretty much a one-off. This was the biggest project they ever did, and that was really two projects, the cottages and the duplex. So meeting that criteria is something that would stop a developer from being very interested in coming to the island. We clearly don't have trouble getting people to do, the larger project, but so that's why, part of the whole discussion that IAP has had is dealing with a builder who wants to build on the kind of project we're talking about. And the discussion that's been had recently is, if we can give you a series of projects, can we keep you interested? So the guy, Ethan, who's been working with us, still has all of his stuff here. He's got, his two big trailers, and he's got all of his equipment here, and we'd certainly like to engage him before he moves it off the island, because he is not an island builder, so. All right, so.
So could I ask one question on the 15,000? How does that work? Is that a grant to IAP or to the town or to somebody else? And how do you oversee that and make sure that and is there a local match, or it's just one check, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So no match, and it's a reimbursement process. And that's something that Michael and I have talked about, which is more in the kind of grant logistics, and something that I need to talk to Abby and Olivia about is if IAP would be able to receive that grant funding as a nonprofit, or if we would have to get, for lack of better words, creative and have the money go to the municipality, but it would be funding IAP work. So, that's to be determined. And the kind of bigger priority question at hand is just to make sure that this potential project would be within the grant scope. But the funding piece is another question.
So then just the end of my question. Whoever you give the money to who then is administering the grant, or how do you know that the money was spent as whoever it is received it, said they were spending it?
Yeah, no, great question. That would be communication between, let's say that the money is administered directly to IAP. That would be conversation with Michael and other folks at IAP that when the plan is contracted to either the developer or anyone else that's involved in writing that plan, there would be invoices from those contracted, and then the grant money would be reimbursed with those invoices.
Where does that requisition go? To you, to somebody else?
To Island Institute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Island Institute is administering the grant.
The overall project.
Hmm.
Questions or comments on planning, on where we are versus what we see short term and long term? Yeah, I mean, it's time to get it going. I realize that, so we're working on it. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions relative to any of this? No, okay. Rather than try, because since we're missing a couple of people, rather than try to set a meeting now, I'm gonna do it on email.
Right.
Get some more info. Again, Lindsay's ill and Jenny's not here and Thomas.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were asking if there was anything else for the meeting.
Yes,
I thought you meant on the planning
me too.
discussion for this. So are we gonna put forward a line item to put in the in front of the select board? Did you do that already? Like, what's the next step on the discussion from last month about what we're proposing to the select board?
there is right now, that was tabled, right?
At the request of your chairman of IAP.
Right.
They said they didn't want anything put in the budget, so we withdrew the.
Well, they didn't want IAP to be tied to the request.
That seems different than having a town line for housing.
You can say that, yeah.
I would,
Barbara was not comfortable, I guess is the best word to use, with just asking for a non-specific amount of money for a non-specific other, I mean, the most specificity was for housing. And so she had requested that IAP not be linked to that request.
Could I suggest that, let's just say that we are as successful as we'd love to be in securing this $15,000. We could spend 3 times that doing the things that you outlined in terms of planning for a developer to actually, I mean, and you think of the savings that are possible if we really had a critical plan that would eliminate the inefficiencies of doing these one-off things, right? So if we had a real planner, if we had somebody working to garner donor support, and if we had somebody who is going to be educating the community, which is not a small thing, about the need and what, I mean, I'm actually pleased with the label social vulnerability because that's what we're experiencing. And I don't think enough people in the community realize it and are, kind of focused on what that means or what it could mean for the future. So, why wouldn't we try to put another $15,000 in as a line item into the budget to say, this is about educating and marketing the need for housing on the island and potentially, garnering support for a public-private partnership.
Okay, maybe just to respond to those suggestions, which I think are absolutely critical to this whole trying to vastly both expand the scope and reduce the time frame involved with building affordable housing or workforce housing. As far as I'm concerned, the distinction, which may be very significant in terms of construction plus people, but I was told very specifically by Barbara that they did not want this included in any of the agenda items which I mentioned included in there. And, I mean,
But it's IAP, right?
exactly.
So it doesn't,
Doesn't matter.
I'm just saying it doesn't have to mention IAP.
Just don't
at all.
say
It didn't mention IAP.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I didn't
Barbara's,
solicit this
yeah,
comment.
yeah.
She called me up on the phone and said, please, we don't want this included in the town budget. It wasn't a matter of IAP. She said to me, excuse me, that she felt the IAP board ought to meet and discuss this before anything was introduced in the town budget. At which point I said, fine, I'm not trying to be a thorn in anybody's side.
I've been talked about that. And
Yes.
I am also on the IAP board, but I think that these two can be very, very separate. We've been talking at length about the different roles that the housing committee
Right.
plays versus IAP versus the school versus the select board. And I think it would behoove us as the housing committee to set the precedent that the town has acknowledged that the lack of workforce housing is a significant barrier to the community's resilience.
And
And that I think we can just say, we have multiple ideas. We have a number of things that we, as the housing committee, think this funding could be used for, or we could decide as a town not to spend it in the first year. We're just developing a
Okay.
pool that is
So
available.
just want to say to you, I absolutely agree with that. It was merely a sort of blanket request on the part of the chairman of IAP. We can put it back in the budget. We're still in the budget process here.
Yeah.
I saw no reason at all why there was any question of competition or authority or anything else. As all of the things that you mentioned went down to, construction management, clerk of the works, code.
Yeah.
um,
IAP may decide they don't want to work with us. Like
Exactly.
they may decide they're
Right.
going in a totally different direction.
but
And
I didn't.
we
feel-
still have a mandate to
So,
care about.
I'm
how
not
we
gonna-
As a select board member, I
Yeah.
can just say, rather than have what contention, whether well-funded or not.
Yeah.
At that moment, it seemed to me fine. I leaned over to Shay and said, let's just defer this to another time. We didn't take it entirely off the table or.
Right.
But I'm just saying it was made very clear to me that this was not
I mean,
appreciated.
we could certainly talk about if there's a conversation to be had with the Board of IAP about how this could potentially be a resource for them, but also is not about them. And I
Mhm.
think,
Especially because the first step in terms of marketing and education is just totally unrelated, right? Because it's about the community's understanding. We're trying to define the problem and help make sure that the community fully understands it.
And I
So-
think that your point, Jennifer, about bringing this issue front row and center, as it's not just an issue, it is the critical issue.
Yeah.
And we're in competition with Vinyl Haven, North Haven, Stonington, all these other communities that are aggressively trying to build more housing and attract more people as the school.
Big tax breaks for people.
I sat next to somebody and their 7-year-old kid from North Haven, and they had 50 kids in the school, and they're really worried about it's the same kind of issue.
Well, I hate to report this, but we're gonna have 46.
No, I know.
And I have, we now have 5 full-time positions that will be advertised for.
Would hasten to add, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but, quite apart from a housing survey and who says they want it, we have these
Teachers.
potential teachers that have to be housed.
Yeah, so obviously we've been working through the magnet program as one way in the short term to try to increase the student population on the island, but potentially a much more promising immediate opportunity is 5 full-time hires that could come with families if there are
Sure.
housing
Sure.
on the island. Or, maybe they don't have families yet, but they're young people who would start a family, right? That is an immediate opportunity, and I see housing as the biggest barrier to getting
Absolutely.
the people to come and not be on the mainland commuting over here to teach, but really become part of the community and be accessible to the students in a way that is very important to the life of the school.
So not being party to the conversation Peter and Barbara had, I did have also a conversation with Barbara, and Barbara did not mention anything to me other than she didn't want IAP to be mentioned as a proponent of the line item.
Yeah.
So,
And I have to say, the proposal said nothing about IAP.
okay,
I'm where there's confusion, Mike, and I apologize if through my own inexperience and ignorance, I was not emphatic enough about this and made the points that you just made, but I will just say, I suggested the money could be given to IAP or not, and that it could be for planning and it could be for whatever marketing,
so,
but
so
that wasn't
Well,
accepted.
we as a committee could request you
Okay.
to add this line item back.
So,
in.
so to answer the question you put is yes, it can definitely be something that's requested. As long as we don't include IAP as a proponent of it,
That's
that's from the housing committee. Is, we asked that a line item, quote unquote, housing.
Right.
Be put in there and IAP is not part of it. If IAP somehow benefits from it, so be it. If it doesn't benefit from it, that's no skin off anybody's nose at that point.
Question about the politics of adding a line item to the town budget.
Yes,
Now, this is not a process I've been through with the town budget in particular. Is this, I don't know if there are, when we have town meeting, if something as small as what we're discussing is something that would garner discussion just because it's a new line item, or if it's likely to go under the radar, or if it's something where we would need to plan to have a couple of folks speak to the reason to it and,
we have,
and
at least 2 months to decide that, and I think you're I've seen already extended discussions about $1,200. It could happen, and we should be ready to prepare for that. My
But
sense is that on a $4 million budget, this is not gonna garner a lot of.
A lot of it depends on, it gets put in the book. And the book is handed out to everybody, so, look, can it come up? Quite possibly, I've
Right.
seen other nits brought up. However, I would also say, really what Jennifer just said is if you have an opportunity to market what you're trying to do, it would probably be well worth some, 3 minutes of discussion as to why it's there. I don't,
I have a feeling the town meeting is gonna have a lot more bigger axes to
I'm
grind.
sure there are, given what I've heard.
I think we
but-
ought to be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question then in terms of preparing, oh, go ahead, Susan.
Oh, no, I just have a question. When you say the line item, this means it's actually coming out of the town's budget, or is this the idea that we had already talked about, which is to somehow have a charge on the houses that are left empty for 10 to 11 months a year?
Not necessary, not exclusive.
Yeah.
So it could
They're
be,
totally independent
so
ideas.
I think what we're talking about right now, Susan, is we haven't yet we haven't developed a recommendation on what revenue source we think makes the most sense. So this would just be sort of town general fund and be the creation of a line, but that line could be the recipient of particular revenue
Sure.
if we do decide to propose a new revenue stream. Right now, the ones we've discussed aren't legal under state law, and so we are.
Details.
So,
What did you talk about?
Unless this,
so I think the idea would be that this, at least as far as my understanding is, that we'd be proposing that the town dedicate a small amount of the general fund to housing. And then we would, continue to research revenue streams to dedicate, which I think if we're proposing a planning process that we're working with the Island Institute on, I mean, it's really different than, you know, like a comprehensive plan or something, but if we're talking about having actual staff support to help us develop a plan, as well as expert input from developers on sort of how we create something that can help us look at things more holistically. That to me says that once we have a clearer sense of what we are going to try and do, then we'll have a better sense of how much money we want to raise and at what speed. And that would help us determine what revenue source we might propose.
Yeah, and so right now, it is nothing more than a general fund line item in the budget. And it's gonna be, if, as Peter originally had put in there, quote unquote, housing. And not non-specific at this point in time, but it was, you know, funds that would go for housing, planning.
I would just say, you know, Jennifer's list, I have the list too,
Yeah.
and I think that was a pretty good start. I think we're treading the one area that I think is politically perhaps sensitive is we're not talking about a blank check for
Right.
anything. There are specific areas of concern which the genesis, though, was merely that this committee and the town should be express support for the whole issue, problems, and somehow or other, and that's why it was a small amount of money that was proposed.
Well,
Was
was the idea that you came up with after you talked to those people.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I am curious about that though. So what boundaries on the potential uses for the funds do we want to draft as a committee to then either be used by the select board or used when we're if the opportunity, and the need to speak to it comes up at town meeting? Like, how do we want to go about setting those?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's the needs are very clear. We've talked about marketing, community education, cultivation of donors, developer planning, you know. I mean, one of the things that's crystal clear to me is that we can make whatever dollars end up going into public housing, we can make them go a lot further if we have really, really good planning that is specific to building on an island. Just how you deploy the materials at what time and your whole timeline, because the cement trucks on the ferry and the gravel work and
acknowledging the concerns that were expressed to me. We need to be careful about making a commitment to assisting
Correct,
IAP.
correct.
There is no question about authority here. It seems to me much of the rest of your list, Jennifer,
Mhm.
as Kate was saying, is potentially independent.
But even if we didn't have IOP, I mean, as you know, I think it's a huge gift to have a not-for-profit on the island that has already done some of this work. Whether they decide to work with us or not is a different issue. But if they, let's just say they weren't gonna work with us, then understanding how we would need to be making recommendations to the town about
Yeah.
a town project.
Right.
We'd have to have that same learning.
Yeah.
So.
And I am curious about marketing being included in the potential uses. I'd love to hear more about, to me, marketing comes sort of after we have a sort of more of the planning and we know who we're marketing to and we have something concrete to sort of say, please come join us for this or move to the island for these houses or things of that sort. You say a little bit more about the marketing you're talking about?
So I think that there's one piece of marketing is serving people off island. You know, that is, it's a proto marketing, whatever you call it. And I also include in marketing, maybe overly broadly, the education of this community about our vulnerability and how housing plays into it, how the school plays into it. I mean, since we've had the town meeting about the schools issues, right? You know, a number of people are like, why is the school talking about housing? Why are housing talking about the school? Like, people just don't understand the connectivity of these vulnerabilities that we're like dominoes and we're all connected. And so that kind of education, I think, is really foundational to making any plan that we have successful.
And
Hmm.
actually in support of that excellent explanation is that it goes to our interactions on the ferry, it goes to the sustainability of the markets, it goes to the sustainability of all the other efforts that go on this island. And I totally, having been here for decades, it's absolutely was extraordinary, a epiphany when I realized how this housing issue is tied to everything else. I don't think that's commonly understood.
Right.
So what I'd like to propose then is that we ask Peter to reinstate that request.
Well, I think we could.
And so do I hear a second?
I would second.
All right,
I'd like,
Susan,
Yes.
I'd like a little help from all of you
you'll get as much as you need, but.
with a description of what is your best shot at what's the balance between being specific and being overly specific, let's say, general versus specific.
Would it be possible to, I don't know in terms of the public meeting rules, would it be possible if Jennifer was to create, I don't know, a short paragraph describing what you just have laid out, and share it with the committee, that we would be able to provide feedback on that before the select board discusses it?
Okay, the select board, the next meeting is next Wednesday. And there'll be another one 2 weeks after that, but
Bullet list.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I can send it around to this group and people can weigh
that'd be
in.
great.
Okay, that sounds wonderful.
Okay,
So
we have a
Oh.
unanimous agreement that we've asked
I'm-
Peter to put it back in.
Okay. First is just a question about, did you actually vote? I know you
So,
had
Yes.
the motion's on the
I
floor,
raised my.
but you have to do
Oh.
roll call voting.
Okay,
Okay.
Susan,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes,
Yes,
Kate, B,
Okay.
yes, okay. so-
And then another, just a comment from me. I think it would be really helpful if somebody from the housing committee goes to the select board meeting to answer questions and present this, and not just Peter.
Okay,
All right,
although I will say, Carrie, that when we brought this up before, nobody had any.
Right, and that's why I think it would be helpful for
And I,
a committee member
Right.
to be there to make the
That's-
presentation.
So you're gonna do it
yeah,
Wednesday?
that'd be great.
No, is that, that's the budget meeting is Wednesday, right?
No,
The select
there's
board.
the select board meeting
Yes, there's the,
next week.
the budget
Yes.
meeting
Yes.
first at 5,
Yeah.
select board meeting at 6.
Okay.
Right,
Would it be at the budget meeting that we need to be there?
You
or
want
the
me here
select
or
board?
on,
either way, whatever
Okay.
you want.
all right.
I would,
come.
I would say the select board meeting portion. Because
Yeah.
at the budget workshop, they're just discussing the line items that
Yeah,
are already
so-
there.
I will come to the,
Okay,
to
great.
the select board.
One of the things just for our grand idea and in this concept of this social vulnerability is a mapping tool used to identify and quantify communities that are most vulnerable to human suffering and financial loss during natural disasters or public health emergencies. And I definitely think if you look at the outcry that there's been for EMT services and volunteer positions in the town that are unfilled, right? That's absolutely something
Mhm.
that more housing on the island could help address, having these kind of services, which depend on volunteerism.
So,
Okay,
all right,
Great. All right, well, thank you for,
okay,
thank you.
yeah, going next week.
all right.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Again, for next meeting date, I'll send out a note so we can get everybody's input rather than us choosing for them, because I don't know where those folks stand, so.
Is it generally a monthly meeting? though?
We've gone to once a month and during slower times, once every other month, so.
Okay.
If we're at this point, I would suggest that we do it at least monthly for at least the next couple of months until we
Yeah.
feel we're on the right track with the things that we're proposing right now.
I realized that I didn't ask a question about, so if we have if we are able to get this grant for the planning with the Island Institute, Emily, who would you be working with us as a committee? Who would be your point of contact? And is it town staff? Is it you, Michael? All right.
Would be,
Could I
because I would be happy to have as many people join as possible.
I was just gonna say, with the uncertainty around IAP right now, if you're gonna advocate for this grant, that maybe it go to the town or to the committee until we know that they're really on board with us.
I think we should do that as the town. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, and what Emily and I have talked about is, yes, there are some of these, some of these walls, if you would, and some of them are there for a reason. I don't wanna, but I think that we can work through them. And part of what we talked about was, you know, where is the town in here and where is IAP? Because it is an independent organization.
It
I-
is, and I respect that, but I'm
I believe we can get
not
through it.
the only person who has said to them, I would donate to you if you'd stop being so siloed, you know? So I think for their
I
donor
should have said
outreach-
that.
You should have said that. So it is, I absolutely understand, anytime you're dealing with a government bureaucracy, like, that's a nightmare, it could affect how nimble they could be, and all of that. But this is a problem that isn't gonna get solved if we don't come together and.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I need to
Go.
along.
All right, so
Can you just
Do I
send me
hear a-
your paragraph, so I have that?
I will do that.
Okay.
do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Excuse me.
So moved.
second.
Okay. Susan, yes. Jennifer, yes.
Yes.
Michael, yes.
Kate,
You're
yes.
Kate, yes. Emily, thank you for joining us.
Yes, of
Thank
course. It was so great to meet you all. And Michael, we'll be in touch, but in all events that this moves forward, I'll really want to continue hearing from, the committee, as we scope out the project. So I will be in touch.
Great,
And
thank you.
Emily, I'm so sorry. I have been emailing with Erin, not you.
I was
So-
kind of like, I don't think I've gotten an email from Kate, but and I will say too that Erin's looped in. Erin and I are connecting on the Island Institute side, so we won't be siloed and we'll be aware of, our different interactions with you guys. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, of course.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Bye.